Hello everybody and welcome to Purgatory Ironworks. My name is Trent and Ty, and man do I have an awesome show for you today. Now, to the untrained eye, this may be stick on fire, but this actually has a lot more historical significance than you would think. This is actually known as a splint from back in the day. Now, this particular type of wood is known as fat lighter here in southeastern or southwestern Georgia rather. There are many different names for this, but what this fat lighter, fat wood, or lighter knot is this is a type of pine wood that has had a lot of the tree's resin come down into it, and it really burns well. And this was a major problem solver for a lot of the colonial people in times past because beeswax candles were expensive. Usually only the richest people had a lot of candles back in the day. So as an alternative to write by at night, you either had these sticks, which they referred to as splints, or they had something that they called a rush. And the rush was a type of reed that grows by the water, and they would take the core of the rush, soak it in tallow or lard, essentially the same thing, and actually light it on fire. But as you can see, it was super smoky. And how do you hold this thing? Well, a lot of the lighting from back in the day was a small metal holder known as a rush lamp or a splint lamp. And we're going to make one of those guys today. We're going to make ourselves a three-legged version to hold this in place while we do our little bit of work. Now, as you can see, it is not a lot of light. It's a lot of soot. But as a poorer person back in the day, that's the best thing that you had. So we're going to try to help the poor people out today, and we're going to make our rush lamp. So let's get to it. So guys, we're going to use our spring swage again because we're going to make the feet of our piece. The footses of our piece, somewhere along there. And very much like in the other project, we're going to use a technique to make a little ball on the end of this rod. This is going to be the first leg of our piece. Now in previous videos, if you had seen when that spring swage was loose, if you look at how much more controlled it is now, because there's a little bit of downward pressure on my piece. Notice what a appreciable difference there is in the control and the precision in how you're able to work that stuff. So we're going to take another heat, and now we're going to go to the shoulder of the anvil and make that ball. Now in some of our previous videos, I was actually complaining as I was trying to make those little balls for our hooks is the fact that I had not taken the time to dress the shoulder of my anvil so that I could get a good clean fit. Well, I finally took the time this morning and did that, and you're going to see a pronounced difference in my ability to roll up the end into a little ball. All right, so what we're going to do here is you can see that I am working this piece down. And I'm working on the four corners. There's a name for this technique, it just escapes me at this moment. This was used in a lot of sword hilts and things of that nature. But check that out. See how quickly we can bring that down to a piece. Now that I've got just that nice shoulder, it's not chewing up the neck there, so that looks really good. So I'll take one more heat. I'm going to dress that just a little bit more, and then we're going to taper the neck behind it. All right, here we go one more time. Again, I'm just going to kind of clean this up. And that's looking good enough for government work. I'm just going to start the taper. I am going to need a little bit more heat, and yeah, looking pretty good. This is a lot easier than the 8 times I practiced before I did this video. All right, we've got a good heat. Again, I'm going to work that taper. Just want a nice smooth transition. It's looking pretty good. And now I'm going to knock my edges off, make sure she's nice and round, pleasing to the touch and to the eye. All right. So what I'll do now, I've got a little mark here on the anvil. I'm going to take a heat, and then we're actually going to need to make 2 more of these. This one particular piece is going to be both one of the legs and the body of our rush holder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make 2 separate legs, and we're going to forge weld them right here. So we did a lot of work. So now you can see that we have 3 of our legs here. And what's going to happen is we're going to set these up. Now, again, this is a situation where having a helpful hand in the shop really helps to forge weld this stuff. Because we're using 3 pieces, you're going to have to wire these things together or give them a good tack weld to get your initial forge weld on here. And this is, again, this is where it gets squirrely. Now, the project we did the other day, where everything was so super short, your wire gets in the way, it's hard to tighten it up, boy, it's a pain in the patoot. Because we got a little bit of length on these, it should not be such a problem to wire these guys up and get our first initial tack. So I'm going to wire these, and then we're going to cheat a little bit, because instead of there being a forge weld on this end where we can easily get it down into the fire, we've got to get the heat here. So we're going to cheat just a little bit. When we get this wired up, we're going to make a bend right here. So if it's bent, we can more easily set that down into the fire and get the heat where we want it. So lots of cheats, but let's get wired up and prep for our first forge weld. Okay guys, we've got this wired up. Like I said, everything's firmly held into place. And if you're staring hard at your screen and you're saying, boy, that looks like MIG weld on the bottom, you are absolutely sorely mistaken. It is being held in place traditionally by this wire, and that's the way that you need to do it. Any illusions of MIG weld that you may see on this front end are completely some flashback from some drugs you had in the past. You know, it's wired together traditionally, so you know. So guys, all kidding aside, like I said, when you're wiring this stuff, it is very difficult to do effectively. Most every time that I do a forge weld in the shop, even if I've got wire on it, unless I'm just making a point for you guys on that end, I always use a MIG welder to tack these forge welds in place. It just makes your life a whole lot easier. If you don't have access to the welder, you know, that's just going to be one of those things. As Jay Riekert once taught me, you know, use the appropriate tool for the appropriate job. And when forge welding, being able to tack that into place is just absolutely the way to go to get a good, consistent weld on that end. Now, if you're just doing it for kicks and you want to do it completely traditionally, again, more power to you. But, you know, I got a show to do, so don't give me no grief. Guys, now I've got a super light welding heat here. And I'm just going to tippy tap her, just kind of setting everything into place. I'm going to reflux, and then I'll go back in to take a proper heat to make a fusion. Doing these 3-way pieces are always a bit of a problem as opposed to doing 4, because again, as you're welding, they have a tendency to slip and slide instead of being square surfaces. So you got to be a little extra careful with these. You're going to find that when you're doing this type of forge weld, there's a couple of issues. Now, where those 3 meet is a really thick piece of metal, but the legs themselves and the extending piece, that's relatively thin. So you will absolutely end up burning one of the thinner pieces before the 3 where they touch gets hot enough to do an effective weld. So the key to all this is making sure that as you bring it up to heat, bring it up slow. Let it cook, let it roast, and then let that heat evenly distribute out without burning one of your legs or your thinner pieces. Again, notice I'm not killing this. I'm just giving her the tippy taps. Our reflux take another heat, and now that it's consolidated, I'll probably jump my heat a little bit. All right, we've got a good heat, a little pop from the borax on the anvil, always a little fun. But if you guys can see, we have a fairly well consolidated weld, and so now we're going to start rounding that up, and that's not too terrible bad. I'm always OCD about my transition right there, but I'll take another heat, clean that up. And I think what we have is a fairly successful forge weld. Now, see, when it got cold, there's a little bit of delamination there. So I'm going to flux again, and I will make sure and take it to a welding heat just to clean it up. Give it a little light welding heat right there just to kind of consolidate everything. And I'm pretty happy with this. I'm going to pull out this taper just to make a smoother transition. See, she's looking pretty good. And with all that smoothness, now I'm going to take the corners off. And let's kind of see if we can't straighten everything up here. Okay, I think she's looking pretty good. Now, one of the last things I'm going to do is actually spread the tripod down here. What I want to do is I want to come on up here. I want to dress this and just kind of get the sharp corners off. We're going to leave it relatively square because we have two more forge welds to do for this particular project. So I'm going to clean up these edges, and then we'll talk about what we're going to do next. So the next portion of this is going to require some flatter stock. Now this is 3/8 inch. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hammer this stuff out till it's about maybe a 1/2 inch by 1/4, maybe a little bit thinner. Because we've got to have two new pieces. We're going to have a loop around the top, and then we're going to have a spring presser foot to actually be inside that loop. Well, you'll see what it does. When you put the rush down in there, that pressure foot holds the rush in that loop so that it burns properly like a candle. All right, like I said, just let me knock the corners off of this, give myself a good bit of space in here. Just want to make sure that there's no factory surface on the material. That's one thing that immediately distinguishes really good iron work, is that every surface is worked. Doesn't matter the shape of it, just make sure everything on there is hammered. Okay, and there we go. So I'm probably going to cut her off about right here, so I'll take a heat and snip, snip, and then we've got to make a little bit of extra stock. All right, guys, we're just going to make ourselves a cut right here. Just like that. Break her loose. Okay, and we're good to go. And now it's time to make some stock for our next two pieces. Now guys, one thing that I want to emphasize, I have not made one of these before. So, you know, a lot of times when I'm doing the S-hook, every move is very practiced. This is me having to actively think while I'm doing this. Finding a project that you have a picture of and getting out there and just making the attempt to make it is great practice for your effort and your skills. So, and you're just getting to see it on camera. Now the fact is I've been doing this long enough that usually I can get close. It's rare that I have a catastrophic failure, but I'm going to tell you immediately with this piece that even now I'm going, okay, when I do this the next time, this is what we're going to do. So, you know, understand as I'm working this stuff, I'm kind of taking you along with my prototype journey. So, very much like with the MIG weld, putting it together. I want that weld to succeed. I may be able to do it the most difficult way possible, but that's not what we're here for. I'm here to show you a cool piece of ironwork using the techniques as how we use them in the shop. And sometimes there's cheats that work really good and make things go well. But if you guys actually want the hardcore stuff, you let me know, I'll take care of you. As I'm always fond of saying, back in the day, steel came in 3 sizes: small, medium, and oh my God. So a lot of the work that was being done in the blacksmith shop was what you see right here. Taking stock and reducing it into the correct sizes. That's one of the reasons that you had relatively unskilled apprentices, because their job was just to sit here and do this. Again, we're looking to pull something out that's maybe about a 1/2 inch by 3/16, maybe a little bit thinner for our presser foot. So I think I'm going to be making our presser first. So I'm going to take another heat and thin that just a tad bit more. This is where guesstimating comes in at its best. So now this presser foot, now here's 2 problems: thickness and length. I want this thing to be fairly springy so that it can hold the rush, but I don't want it to be so strong it takes the might of Samson to pull it back to put the rush in there. But if it's too weak, then it's going to bend. So I'm kind of caught in between a middle, making a guess on how long it needs to be and also how thick it needs to be. And also trying not to burn it while I'm working on it, because I run my mouth. That causes problems sometimes. So it's kind of springy. I'm kind of down to like maybe an 11 gauge or an 1/8 of an inch. I'm going to take it down just a little bit further, but we're close. Now, if you remember the old saying, "He who a good edge will win must first forge thick and grind thin." So I think I'm going to leave her right there, and any further reduction I will actually do cold by grinding or filing, because she's got some spring to her. Of course, she's still hot, but I think this will be enough for what I want to do, especially after we clean up the sides here. I'm now going to take a heat, and I'm going to cut it loose right down here at the bottom. Okay, that was fairly straightforward and simple. I'm going to remove this piece, and I am going to do just a tad bit of scarfing on here. Because this is going to be the, as they say, the mother humper of forge welds. So, okay, there we go. Now let's forge this other piece after I drop this one. Come back here, you joker. And then we're going to talk about how we're going to accomplish our goals here. All right. Okay, our second piece, again, we've got a little bit more forgiveness here. The spring has to be of certain thickness for its proper springiness. But this piece is the loop that the spring will sit against. That is, basically, it's just acting as a clamp. Now, making it, going to be pretty simple. We're just going to make a loop. Forge welding it to our piece, now that's going to be another particular issue altogether. But let's get this made before we get into those questions. One more heat and we'll bring this out, and she's looking good. Okay. All right, I think that piece is ready to go. Now, before we cut it loose, I'm actually going to bend this to the width that I need before we cut it loose. Just going to save ourselves some time and aggravation. I'm going to pick about the halfway point. Okay, that should be plenty. Now, if I want to tighten that loop up, I'm going to use a form. I'm actually going to take our cutting hardy. I'm going to put it into place here. And then I'm simply going to put my loop over here, and this allows me to actually work this so that I have a very even piece like that, right? Pretty cool there. And now I just need to come in, and I'll take one more heat. I'm not going to get greedy. I'll take one more heat, come in, cut her off right there, and we have got our loop. All right, little tippy tap. And she comes right off. Wunderbar, excelente. Now, if it's not even, that's okay. That's what we have a grinder for. So I will make sure she's level. I'll come back and now you can trim this exactly, you can tap on it. I'm simply going to call it good to go, and I'll grind it to even it up, and then we have our final piece. And then we need to talk about what we're going to do next. Okay guys, let's look at our next great adventure. All right, so now we have our clamp right here. What's going to happen is this piece will go to our top, and it will be forge welded in. Now, traditionally, normally when I have seen stuff like this, what they do before they forge weld it is they actually come in and they, a lot of times, put a rivet through there to hold it into place. I've seen that a couple different times. Again, if you had a second person in the shop with both the, one holding one component, you holding the other one, going from the fire to the forge or the anvil very quickly and getting a couple taps in there would work. However, again, I don't have that particular option, and with this, it is going to be just about impossible to wire this into place. So traditionally, I would have gone getting a buddy. Today, we're going to pop a tack weld on it. Now, this is not going to be the most difficult forge weld. This is, because what has to happen is that this clamp will go into this here. This spring will be forge welded after the other one is put into place, like so, so that it pushes against the clamp like that. That's what's going to hold our rush, or our splint. And that's what we're going to say is going to be a pain in the butt, because this is super thin material, but we need to get that weld right there. So that's why I left myself a thick tail. Yeah, I have not done one like this before, so I am looking at this going, there is a significant possibility of failure in this end of it, but we're going to give it a shot nonetheless. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get our clamp into place, get it forge welded, and then we're going to see about our spring, okay? Here we go. So guys, there's our initial heat. we're going to give it the sprinkles. And while I've got it here, I'm also going to make sure and go ahead and get us into rough position. Looks terrible, but it's going to work. Forge welding is not that difficult if you have large pieces. When you have big, massive pieces of steel and can hold that heat, you've got all the time in the world to go about your business to get things done. On thin things, though, that is a different story. Not only do you risk burning the material, you have to move exceedingly quickly to get your welds. When you are able to forge weld thinner materials consistently, you know what you're doing. Out we go, and tippy-tappy. So that looks like it held, but just for safety's sake and because things live forever on the internet, I'm going to do a safety weld. Okay. Man, it's looking like we are pretty good to go. Maybe sort of. Yeah, good enough for government work. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to take another heat and I'm going to actually chuck something up in the vise because I want to square that loop up before we get to our other piece. So let me take a heat, just run that right over there and get her cleaned up. Okay guys, let's take a look. So there she is. You can see I've opened her up and squared that inside just a tad bit. So she sits like this, and here is our spring. So what will happen is this will sit into here and then be forge welded on that body. And that pressure clamp right there is what allows you to put your rush in. So obviously, we've got thin metal very close to our forge welding point, and the forge welding point's in the middle of the frickin' piece. So this is, as they say, a little hinky. Again, back in the day, this would have been a situation where you almost certainly would have had to have had a buddy sitting there holding this piece. But we're going to tack her in. Then I am going to flux her, and we're going to very gently, very carefully, ever so delicately attempt to forge weld this thin piece of metal. All right, guys, we're going to bring our piece out. Now, if you notice, when I weld this up, I usually leave it very open. There's a reason for that, because before I close this and cinch everything up, it allows me to get flux down everywhere where I want it. Now, for this weld, I'm actually switching to a lighter hammer because I want more tippy-tap and less crushy-crushy. Now, and if you're wondering how I'm not going to melt this, so one technique that I'm going to use is I'm actually going to push this piece almost all the way through the fire. So just this portion right here is going to be in the active super hot zone. This will protect this a little bit. It will help. It won't completely mitigate, but hopefully that will get the job done. So, all right, guys, we got a light welding heat, super light. In fact, that may not have been enough to even do the job, but we did arrange it, so I'm going to tap it again, flux it, and we're going to sneak up on it one more time. So I am going to treat this with extreme caution. This is because that metal is so thin, if I run my mouth too much or I'm not paying attention or I'm not watching that heat, this piece could absolutely fail. And I have been out here too long and sweated too much for it to screw up now. Still not quite right. Going back one more time. Man, I am babying this weld. That's going to be her. Still light, but that should hold it. But you know what? It's a little bit of a crack there. We're going to hit it again. There we go. That's her. Okay. That is our weld. Okay, now let's see if we can straighten her up. And bend our spring out. And we're going to need her to be actually flat. Oh, sorry. So I'm going to do that right there. That makes sure that we're going to have a flat spring. Line her back up. And that's not terrible. It ain't great, but that's not terrible. Now we can work on our legs. Okay, so the weld worked. It's good enough for government work. So now we just need to adjust the legs. And I gotta tell you something, when you're adjusting the legs on a tripod, something like this, it's always squirrely. Like I'm more worried about how these legs turn out than how the weld went. So in this case, I'm going to use a combination of the anvil to kind of get them open, and then I'm going to use a bending jig to try to haphazardly get them into the shape that I want them. So far, better than I expected. Okay, not terrible. We're not bad yet. All right, I'm gonna work those ball tips right there and turn them down. Now, I'm not gonna get super fancy. I'm just gonna try to turn these down so they look halfway like that, and that's looking pretty good. And I'm gonna do that for the rest of them as well. And here we go with number 2. Kind of, sort of even, maybe a little bit. Come on. Just a little bit more. All right. A little bit of tippy-tappy, a little bit of adjustment there. And I think I'm going to move this tine over just a tad bit, and so that she's in a real square, and I think we're going to be good to go. So guys, there she is, your very own rush holder. Now this design is taken from the 1700s. This was quite common in colonial America. This particular one that I saw or got the idea from was from the book The Sorber Collection, which is a fantastic resource if you don't have it. It is a collection of colonial ironwork, and this was one of the items that I saw this morning when I decided what to film. Now, how she functions. You can see that our retaining clip there does a pretty good job, and we're going to use our 1700s blowtorch to light this bad boy. And there you go, beautiful, sooty, romantic lighting to read by, to do whatever you want to by, but that's how it is. So again, I am very happy with this. Again, I didn't have a plan for this guy, so the fact that it all came out with these forge welds and worked, I am ecstatic. I'm not sure how I managed to pull this off, but I did. And ladies and gentlemen, there it is, your rush lamp. So folks, again, I hope you enjoyed this video, and this super awesome stuff is brought to you by our Patreons at Patreon/Purgatory Ironworks. If you enjoyed the video, please, for goodness sake, like, subscribe, tell me what you want to see next. Go over to Patreon if you really love us. Help support the channel. And thank you very much to a very special Patreon who has been with me for many years and who had the absolute audacity to come back to help even more. Mark Blosser, thank you very much from here at Purgatory, and I hope you are enjoying the fruits of your Patreon support. Guys, take care.